Let's be honest.
Girls kissing girls, cause it's hot, right? But unless they use a strap on, then they not dyke.
Kanye was about wild as hell for that lyric, but it's a lot of science behind it, especially if we're considering both the biological and the sociological frameworks around Black lesbianism. Okay, let me break it down a little bit. So, in my research study, and this is focusing more on the biological side, I looked at women who had sex with women, and they had higher concentrations of what we call Lactobacillus malaris. This is a species of a healthy bacteria called Lactobacillus, which is responsible for women maintaining a higher pH value, is protective against STIs, BV infections. It's just a healthy bacteria that you do want living in your vagina. However, women who did not have sex with women and only had sex with men, they had higher concentrations of bad bacteria. They didn't have the lactobacillus bacteria living inside of them, super low to not present at all. So now when we consider that, we have to ask questions. What is it about males that are causing women to be thrown off in their vaginal microbiome? Also, too, I must note that every participant did have sexual encounters with males. However, we don't know the extent to where the women who had sex with women, did they stop having sexual encounters with males? Did they have it one time? Is it happen simultaneously? We don't know. But what we can infer from that data is that males are throwing out the vaginal microbiome for women. And like I mentioned in a previous video, when you mix an alkaline seminal fluid to an acid-based vagina, we're mixing. Now we have a basic concentration. Now we have this infection called BV. So it can be very problematic. When we look at women who have sex with women, they had this healthier concentration. So the question becomes like, oh, is homosexuality biologically a more healthier thing for women? Now, I would be remiss if I didn't look at other research studies, correct? So if we look at Los Angeles County, and they show that women who have sex with women are actually at a higher risk of acquiring an STI. Now we have to look at some social differences there, right? So if we look at women who have sex with women in Los Angeles, that research study, it looked at women, number one, with a wider age gap. My group was only 18 to 24. However, in that study, I want to say they looked at women up to age 50. So the older you are, it's presumed that you have more sexual experience, you have more sexual partners, and you're putting yourself at more and more risk to acquire an STI or some type of infection. So you have to consider that. And then also, society, right? I am in South Carolina. I'm in the Bible Belt South. So that lifestyle in comparison to a more liberal, more free space in Los Angeles County, sexuality is more accepted. People are able to act on sexuality more than where I'm living. So you have to look at what role does society play in sexual risk behavior and vaginal and sexual health. And this spins into more of a sociological framework, right? So not only am I looking at human behavior, what is acceptable, we have to look at gender politics, correct? Sociologist Patricia Hill Collins, she talks about an archetype of woman and specifically the Jezebel archetype, over-sexualized, used for her body. And most African American women have experienced that across their lifetime, gay or straight, correct? However, when you factor in this archetype with homosexuality, women are now perceived as more promiscuous. They are expected to show up a different way in society. It's almost dehumanizing and it's unfair. So this is what my research kind of breaks down a little bit. I can't wait till you guys can see the episodes. I had a conversation with my sister, Denisha Harris. She is a serologist in Atlanta, as well as an open queer woman. So she was very vulnerable about her life experiences and things that she knows to be true about being Black and queer, a scientist, and a Black woman in society. So I'm really excited for you guys to check it out. Please check out the episode, and I'll be dropping some clips and discussions around that conversation. It's so loaded and it has a myriad of factors that I think are worth having a pertinent conversation for. So check it out.
Yeah, that's real too.
You
Like
can get
the
things.
dildo and strap-on sex sharing that other researchers see with same-sex relationships and same-sex women having sex with women.
Yes. Yes.
The risks that come with that. So let's get back into that because I know we went on a little STEM
Gotta
tangent
clean
like
it.
we always do.
Oh Lord. That's true. That's true.
But getting back into the social aspect of being Black and being queer and being just in your own skin, and then society kind of tells you what to do. I think this is why Patricia Hill Collins did her own research, because she wanted to navigate all the different aspects of not just being Black, queer, working class,
Mm,
dismantling white patriarchal goals and ideas. So I'll get into what she calls one of her frameworks and archetypes of Black women. She calls it the Jezebel archetype. And you'll hear people say, like, oh, you have a Jezebel spirit. And basically, what that means is
sorry.
um, you are more sexually promiscuous. Having this spirit of lust. And she says in her research that women, specifically African American women, because you're already over sexualized through historical context,
Mm-hmm.
once an African American woman already being sexualized since she was born, she identifies
Mm-hmm.
as lesbian, bisexual. She's a woman who has sex with women. Now is like, oh, overly demonized, you sexual demon person. She said that's how she feels, but
Mm-hmm.
that's how society views Black women. And it's like, well, dang, what if I'm just minding my business? Like, why does it have to
Mm-hmm.
be all of that? So,
Mm-hmm.
with that being said, did you find it difficult at all to navigate your sexuality, as you came up, teenage years, college years, with the pressures of society already being around? Like, how did you navigate that?
Hmm. Um, I would say that for me, I did find it difficult to navigate my sexuality in my formative years. This was only because I knew as a child when I was in elementary school
Mm,
that I had a natural attraction to both genders.
mhm.
And I just felt like, okay, I had a confusion about this, but because of the nature of my relationship that I had as far as with my parents, like me and my mother, we didn't have the best relationship with me growing up. So I just kind of felt like trying to approach her and communicate about, hey mom, this is what I'm feeling, or just having that openness and comfortability was not there. My father, he was present in my life, but he was always preoccupied working, so it wasn't nothing that I felt at that time just comfortable even talking about. Also because I was a kid as well, so I was just just trying to grow up and enjoy kid things. So that opportunity just wasn't really there. But
Mhm.
as far as like post elementary, when my family moved to Atlanta, and I was in middle school, my mother, that's when everything, she pretty much pushed us in the church, and I grew up in a Baptist Christian household. So my pretty much my upbringing was just like, hey, this is what it is, Adam and Eve, natural, order of
Yeah.
things or whatever with life and whatnot. And I knew that there was still those thoughts in my mind, but I was always in a relationship with males. So it was just kind of like it was just a natural thing for me. It was just like, okay, well, I'm just gonna date men or whatever the case may be. It wasn't no females that were actually even presenting themselves at that time. I felt like to where I was like, oh, you know, I would really want to talk to this person or whatever on that level also. And then there was a situation to where one of my best friends, we were seniors in high school, and she was actually actively dating a woman in our high school, and she came out to her aunt who she was living with at the time, and her auntie pretty much disowned her. She said, hey, once you graduate, you got to move to Virginia. Like, it was just so much drama, and her experience actually basically scared me because, like I said, my family, everything was religious, Christian household, and I was just like, okay, like I'm not trying to have none of that happen to me. I'm about to go off to college. I don't need this extraness and this beef, or whatever the case may be. So I pretty much suppressed certain things that I felt were starting to come emotion wise. But then also at the
Mhm.
same time, like I said, I was dating men. So it was like also, it wasn't that deep for me. Um, as far as like once I got to college, I feel like that's when I really had the desire to want to explore my sexuality. But the only reason why it didn't occur in college was because I did join a sorority, and it was during my sophomore year I joined my sorority, and I knew that I just it was just so much as far as with me being focused on what the outside world would perceive of me, in the sense
Mhm.
of like I'm not representing myself anymore. I just joined this organization that's about certain principles and leaderships, and I'm like, how would these people look at me,
Mhm.
and in the organization, not even just them, like my peers. It was really nerve-wracking, but it was just like I'm kind of battling this quietly to myself. So that was something to where it did become difficult
Mhm.
for me. So I really didn't come out until after I graduated from college. And then I actually started dating women post graduation and everything. So, but I did have my experiences in college, but they were just on the low, because I was like, let me be sure. And so and then that's when it was like, okay,
Yeah. Well, I hate that you feel like you had to suppress that, sister. You could have been came and told me. You knew what I had your back.
not in college, not in college. No,
I
it's
understand your
the
time.
judgment, you know how
Yeah,
it like,
I understand.
and representation. Also, that's one thing too. I think now it's a lot more representation of LGBTQ plus, um,
Mhm.
in sororities, in organizations, period, fraternities, all that. But I
Mhm.
feel like around the time that we joined, it wasn't like that, especially with women. I don't think so.
I
You
think
know.
what you touched on was a myriad of factors, right?
Hmm.
So, first, you mentioned growing up, you didn't really feel comfortable telling parents, right? So, we have to think about
Hmm.
a parental aspect. Then,
Hmm.
growing up in church, so you factor
Hmm.
in religiosity and how that impacts youth decision making and being open. Then three, you talked about your friend who pretty much got exiled by her
Hmm.
aunt. So that creates
Hmm.
like a barrier of fear, right? And then four, you talk about, our college experiences and being in Black Greek letter organizations. And I've always said that pledging in the South versus the North is just so very different. It's two different worlds, being Greek in
Oh
the
yeah.
South versus being Greek in the North. And coming from Chicago, being in Albany, Georgia, I was like, okay, this Greek life is vastly different from what I grew up seeing.
Mhm.
So I feel like I didn't see gay people in sororities my whole life. It wasn't anything
Dang.
new. So to hear you say that, it's like, dang, I
Yeah.
wish Nisha would have told me because, girl, like
Girl.
it's not a,
Told me.
you did not have to suffer that on your own. Like I would never like out you or anything like that. But
Yeah.
like that wasn't like, girl, well, who cares? But I mean, I feel like you feel that way now. But of course, when we were coming up, just the
Mm-hmm.
social stigma of again, factoring in the Black Bible Belt versus not
Hmm.
being in the Black Bible Belt and how all those things, like you mentioned, all the things that Patricia Hill Collins talks about, you literally put that
Mm.
without even knowing you said that in your own experience. And I just wonder how many other Black gay, bisexual women who have sex with women feel that way because it's like,
Hmm.
wow, like Nisha literally pinpointed everything that this researcher talks about and she didn't even know it. That's crazy.
It's
That's
it's
interesting.